The smell of burnt toast hung in the air as I sat across from my wife of 8 years at our kitchen table. Sarah had been distant for months, but that morning, something was different. There was a glint in her eye, not guilt, not fear, but something closer to triumph. "I need to tell you something," she said, stirring her coffee with deliberate slowness. I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been reviewing quarterly reports for my consulting firm. "What's up?" "I slept with Daniel." She said it casually, like she was commenting on the weather. Daniel. Her ex-boyfriend from college. The one she'd told me not to worry about when they reconnected on social media 2 years ago. I felt my chest tighten, but I kept my expression neutral. Years of negotiating million-dollar contracts had taught me the value of controlling my reactions. "When? Does it matter?" She leaned back in her chair, and that's when I saw it, the smirk. Small, barely there, but unmistakable. She was enjoying this. "It's been going on for 6 months. I thought you should know." 6 months. Half a year of lies, of coming home late, of girls' nights and work conferences. The puzzle pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. But what struck me most wasn't the betrayal itself, it was the way she delivered it. Like a weapon. Like she wanted to watch me break. "Say something," she prompted, taking a sip of her coffee. "I need a minute to process this." My voice came out steady, professional even. Inside, a storm was brewing, but I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing it. She rolled her eyes. "That's so typical of you, Mark. Always so controlled, so boring. Maybe that's why I needed someone else. Someone with passion." There it was. The script I'd heard variations of in countless divorce cases I'd consulted on. The cheater's justification. "It's your fault I betrayed you." I closed my laptop slowly. "Are you asking for a divorce?" "I'm saying I want more from life." She stood up, smoothing down her designer dress, the one I'd bought her for our anniversary. "I want to feel alive again. Daniel makes me feel that way." "I see." I nodded, my mind already working, calculating. "And Daniel knows you're married." "He doesn't care. We're in love." She said it with the conviction of a teenager, not a 34-year-old woman. "Where does he live again?" "Still in that apartment downtown." She paused, suspicious now. "Why?" "Just curious about the man my wife is in love with." I kept my tone light, conversational. "Yes, downtown. The Lexington building." She grabbed her purse from the counter. "I'm going to spend the day with him. We can talk about next steps tonight." I watched her walk toward the door, her heels clicking on our hardwood floors. "Sarah." She turned, and I saw it again, that smirk, that look of someone who thought they'd won. "Have a good day." Confusion flickered across her face. She'd expected tears, rage, begging. Instead, I gave her nothing. The door closed behind her, and I sat in the silence of our kitchen, listening to her car pull out of the driveway. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up a file I'd created 3 months ago, when I first suspected something was wrong. I'm not proud of what I'd done, but I'm not a fool either. When Sarah started password protecting her phone and showering immediately after coming home, I'd hired a private investigator. Not because I wanted to catch her, I'd hoped I was wrong. But I believed in being prepared. The investigator's report was thorough. Photos, timestamps, hotel receipts, text messages recovered from cloud backups. 6 months of evidence, meticulously documented. And more importantly, detailed financial records of exactly how much of our joint assets Sarah had spent on her affair. I picked up my phone and called my attorney. Then I called my accountant. By the time Sarah came home that evening, smug and satisfied, I'd already set in motion a plan that would teach her a lesson about consequences she'd never forget. Some people think revenge is a dish best served cold. I was about to prove it could be served with spreadsheets and legal documents. Sarah came home at 11 that night, reeking of cologne that wasn't mine and wearing a satisfied smile that made my stomach turn. I was sitting in the living room, a glass of whiskey in hand, my laptop open on the coffee table. "You waited up," she said, tossing her purse on the couch. "How sweet." We should talk about the logistics, I replied calmly. You want a divorce, we should discuss how to proceed. She kicked off her heels and curled up on the armchair across from me, looking more relaxed than she had in months. I'm glad you're being reasonable about this. I was worried you'd make things difficult. Difficult? I took a sip of my whiskey. Sarah, we've been together for a decade. If this is what you want, I'm not going to fight it. But we need to be practical about dividing our assets. Her eyes lit up at the mention of assets. Our house was worth $1.2 million, paid off thanks to my business success. My consulting firm generated healthy profits. We had investments, savings, a vacation property. She was clearly already calculating her half. I think a 50-50 split is fair, she said, trying to sound magnanimous. Despite everything, I don't want to be cruel. The irony wasn't lost on me. Of course. But there are some expenses we need to account for first. What expenses? I turned my laptop toward her. On the screen was a spreadsheet I'd spent the afternoon preparing with my accountant. These expenses. She leaned forward, squinting at the columns of numbers. What is this? This, I said, keeping my voice level, is an itemized list of every penny you spent on your affair with Daniel over the past 6 months. The color drained from her face. How did you? Credit card statements, Sarah. We have a joint account, remember? You weren't exactly discreet. I stood up and walked to her chair, pointing at specific entries. 72 hotel stays at an average of $300 per night. That's $21,600. Then there are the restaurants, always the expensive ones. Another $8,400. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm very serious. You bought Daniel gifts, didn't you? That Rolex you charged to our account, $12,000. The designer suits, $6,800. The weekend trip to Napa Valley you told me was a bachelorette party for your friend Jessica? That was actually for you and Daniel. First-class flights, 5-star resort. $9,200. She stood up, her face flushing red. You're insane. You can't charge me for. I'm not done. I clicked to the next page. You also used our home equity line of credit. Remember when you said you wanted to renovate the guest bathroom? Turns out you withdrew $15,000 to help Daniel with his business venture. Then there's the cash withdrawals, $8,500 over 6 months. Small amounts, clever, but they add up. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. This is ridiculous. You can't. Can't what? Hold you accountable? Sarah, we live in a state with alienation of affection laws. But more importantly, these are marital assets. Money you spent without my knowledge on an extramarital affair. I closed the laptop. According to my attorney, and yes, I spent the day with her, this constitutes dissipation of marital assets. In a divorce, you're required to reimburse the marital estate for funds you wasted on an affair. You're bluffing. Am I? I pulled out my phone and opened a folder. I also hired a private investigator 3 months ago. I have photos, Sarah. Videos. Text messages recovered from your cloud backup that you thought you deleted. Want to see them? I turned the phone toward her. Her face went white as she saw herself and Daniel in a hotel lobby, kissing. Another photo showed them entering his apartment. Another captured them at a restaurant, holding hands across the table. The investigator cost me $12,000, by the way. That's also coming out of your share. She stumbled backward, gripping the armrest. Mark, please. The total, I continued, my voice cold now, precise, comes to $89,500. Round it up to $90,000 for my attorney's fees for the initial consultation and document preparation. That's what you owe the marriage before we even begin to divide assets. I don't have that kind of money. Then it comes out of your share of the divorce settlement. I picked up a folder from the side table and handed it to her. These are the divorce papers. I'm filing on grounds of adultery. Given the evidence, my attorney is confident we can argue for an unequal distribution of assets in my favor. But I'm willing to be generous. She opened the folder with shaking hands, her eyes scanning the documents. Here's what I'm proposing, I said. You pay back the $90,000 in dissipated assets. After that, we split what's left 60-40 in my favor, considering your fault in the divorce. You'll walk away with approximately $380,000, enough to start your new life with Daniel. Or, I paused, letting the word hang in the air. Or we go to court, and I push for a full accounting of fault. In which case, you might leave with substantially less. You bastard, she whispered. You calculated, cold bastard. No, Sarah. I'm just someone who doesn't appreciate being played for a fool. I finished my whiskey. You have 24 hours to decide. Sign the settlement agreement, or we go to court. Either way, you're paying for your mistakes. She stood there, tears streaming down her face now, all trace of that smirk gone. I thought you loved me. I did, I said quietly. But you killed that when you decided betraying me would be fun. When you smiled at my pain. This isn't revenge, Sarah. This is justice. The next morning, Sarah was gone when I woke up. Her car wasn't in the driveway, and the silence in the house felt different, lighter, somehow. I made coffee and checked my phone. 3 missed calls from her mother and a string of increasingly frantic texts from Sarah herself. You're ruining my life. Daniel says you're abusing the legal system. My lawyer says you can't do this. I smiled at that last one. She'd already called a lawyer. Good. Let them tell her the truth. My attorney, Patricia Chen, had been handling divorce cases for 25 years. When I'd shown her the evidence yesterday, she'd actually laughed. This is the most documented case of marital asset dissipation I've ever seen. If she fights this, she's an idiot. I texted Sarah back, have your attorney call mine. We can discuss the reality of your situation. An hour later, Patricia called me. Mark, I just got off the phone with Sarah's attorney, some guy fresh out of law school, probably the only one who'd take her case on short notice. He tried to bluster about intimidation and coercion. I sent him the evidence file. And he went silent for about 30 seconds, then asked if the settlement offer was still on the table. I said it was, for now. He's going to talk to his client. What do you think she'll do? She'll sign. She's broke, Mark. I pulled her individual credit report. You authorized that yesterday, remember? She has $47,000 in credit card debt you didn't know about. All run up in the past 6 months. She's been living a double life on borrowed money and your marital assets. I closed my eyes, processing this new information. She went into debt for him. Head over heels, apparently. The pathetic part? I did some digging on Daniel Chen, no relation to me, thank God. He's a failed entrepreneur with 2 bankruptcies and a trail of debt. Your wife wasn't just having an affair, she was funding a loser's lifestyle. Despite everything, I felt a pang of something, not quite pity, but sadness for the woman Sarah had become. Keep me posted. That afternoon, Sarah showed up at the house. She looked terrible, makeup smeared, eyes red, wearing the same clothes from yesterday. She'd clearly spent the night at Daniel's. Can I come in? She asked quietly. I stepped aside, and she walked into the living room where this had all started yesterday. She sat on the couch, her hands trembling. My lawyer says you have me over a barrel. Her voice was flat, defeated. He says if we go to court, I could end up with nothing. That the judge would be sympathetic to you. That's accurate. Daniel says I should fight. That you're bluffing, that no judge would really make me pay back that money. Daniel, I said carefully, is wrong. And I suspect Daniel is telling you to fight because he benefits from you getting a large divorce settlement. Has he asked you for money, Sarah? She looked away, which was answer enough. How much have you given him? That's none of your business. Actually, if it's marital funds, it is my business. But fine. Let me guess, He has some investment opportunity or business idea that just needs a little capital to get off the ground. Her silence confirmed it. Sarah, look at me. I waited until she did. I'm not doing this to destroy you. I'm doing this because you spent 6 months lying to me, spending our money on another man, and then had the audacity to smirk about it when you told me. You wanted to hurt me. Well, congratulations. But actions have consequences. I loved you once, she whispered. Then you should have divorced me before sleeping with someone else. You should have been honest. Instead, you chose deception and cruelty. I sat down across from her. Here's what you don't know. I spoke with the property manager at Daniel's building this morning. Her head snapped up. What? He's 3 months behind on rent. He's being evicted next week. That's probably why he's suddenly so interested in you fighting for a bigger settlement. She covered her face with her hands. Oh God. Sign the papers, Sarah. Take the $380,000 and start over. Maybe even start over without Daniel, because from where I'm sitting, he's just using you. You don't know him like I do. You're right. But I know his credit history, his bankruptcy filings, and his eviction notices. Patricia pulled all of it. He's a con artist, Sarah, and you're his mark. She started crying then, deep, heaving sobs. Part of me wanted to comfort her, the way I had 1,000 times during our marriage. But that part was dead now, killed by that smirk in the kitchen yesterday. I'll sign, she finally said. I'll sign your papers. Good. I pulled out a pen and the documents. Your attorney can review everything, but it's all here. The accounting, the settlement terms, everything. She took the pen with a shaking hand. I'm sorry, Mark. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. So am I. And I meant it. I was sorry for the years wasted, for the trust broken, for the life we'd built that she'd demolished. But I wasn't sorry for protecting myself. She signed each page where Patricia had placed a tab, her tears occasionally dripping onto the paper. When she finished, she looked up at me one last time. Was I ever enough for you? The question caught me off guard. Sarah, you were everything to me. That was never the problem. The problem was that I wasn't enough for you, and instead of telling me, you destroyed us both. She nodded, stood up, and walked out of my life. 3 weeks after Sarah signed the divorce papers, I stood in our, now my, living room, surrounded by boxes. Half contained her belongings, neatly packed and ready for the movers. The other half held the remnants of our life together, wedding photos I couldn't bring myself to throw away yet, gifts from friends who'd celebrated a marriage that no longer existed, memories that felt like they belonged to someone else. My phone rang. Patricia. The check cleared, she said. All $90,000, plus the asset division. She's officially out of your accounts. That was fast. Her attorney pushed it through. I think they wanted this done before she could change her mind. Patricia paused. Have you heard from her? No. You? Actually, yes. That's why I'm calling. She tried to stop payment on the check yesterday, claimed duress and coercion in signing the agreement. Her attorney shut that down immediately, told her she'd signed voluntarily, with legal representation, and that reopening this would cost her far more than she'd already lost. I sank into the couch. She tried to back out. Don't worry. The money's in your account, the divorce is filed, and Judge Morrison has our case. He's seen the evidence and told me off the record that he's never seen such clear-cut dissipation of assets. We could have asked for more. I didn't want more. I just wanted what was fair. Fair is a relative term in divorce court, Mark. But for what it's worth, I think you handled this with remarkable restraint. Most men in your position would have tried to leave her with nothing. After we hung up, I walked through the house, seeing it differently now. The kitchen where she'd smirked at me. The bedroom where she'd lied beside me while texting him. The bathroom where she'd showered away evidence of her betrayal. Every room held ghosts. My business partner, Tom, had been trying to get me to take time off. You're a divorce cliché, man, he'd said last week. At least go to therapy or take a vacation or something. He was right. I'd thrown myself into work, taking on new clients, restructuring deals, anything to avoid thinking about Sarah. But now, with the divorce nearly finalized, I had to face the silence. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, I saw a man I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, expensive suit, angry expression. "Can I help you?" I asked through the door. "Are you Mark Henderson?" "Who's asking?" "Daniel Foster. I think we should talk." I felt adrenaline surge through my system. Sarah's affair partner was on my doorstep. Every muscle in my body tensed, but my years of professional negotiations kicked in. Never let them see your reaction. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. "What do you want?" "You ruined her life," he said, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. "She's broke, homeless, and it's your fault." "Homeless?" That caught me off guard. "What are you talking about?" "She gave me her settlement money to invest. The deal fell through. She has nothing left." For a moment, I couldn't speak. $380,000? She gave you $380,000. It was supposed to be a sure thing. "Get off my property." My voice came out low, dangerous. "Get off my property right now, or I'm calling the police." "You self-righteous prick. You acted like you were so moral, making her pay you back, and for what? You have millions. That money would have changed her life, and you took it from her out of spite." "I took what she stole from our marriage. What she did with her settlement is her choice. Just like sleeping with you was her choice. Now leave before I do something we'll both regret." He stepped closer, and I saw it in his eyes. The same calculation, the same narcissistic certainty that had convinced him he could sleep with another man's wife without consequences. "You think you won," he said. "But you lost just as much as she did. You lost your wife, your marriage, your happy ending. And for what? Money? Principle? You're going to die alone in this big empty house, and the money won't keep you warm." "Maybe," I said calmly. "But at least I'll have my self-respect. Can you say the same?" His face reddened, and for a second, I thought he might swing at me. Instead, he turned and stalked back to his car, a BMW with expired temporary tags. Through the window, I saw him punch the steering wheel before driving away. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding. Sarah had given him everything. The entire settlement. Gone. The karmic justice of it should have felt satisfying, but instead, I felt hollow. I called Patricia back. "Sarah gave Daniel Foster her entire settlement. Can we do anything about that?" "Not legally. It was her money once the divorce terms were met. But Mark, this changes nothing. She made her choice." "I know. But you still care about her. That's normal. Divorce doesn't shut off feelings like a light switch." Patricia's voice softened. "The question is, what do you want to do about it?" I looked around my empty house. "I don't know." "Then figure it out. You've been in survival mode for months. Maybe it's time to decide what comes next." That night, I did something I hadn't done since before I discovered the affair. I let myself feel it, all of it. The betrayal, the anger, the grief for what we'd lost. I sat in the dark living room and cried for the first time since this began. 2 months after the divorce was finalized, I was closing a major deal when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Mark? It's Sarah." I hadn't heard her voice since the day she signed the papers. She sounded different, smaller, uncertain. "What do you want, Sarah?" "I need to apologize. In person. Please. I know I don't deserve your time, but I'm asking anyway." Every instinct told me to say no, to hang up and block the number. But curiosity won. 1 coffee. Public place. Tomorrow at noon. The cafe was deliberately neutral territory, nowhere we'd been together, full of strangers. Sarah was already there when I arrived, and I barely recognized her. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, no makeup, wearing jeans and a plain sweater. The designer clothes and accessories were gone. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. "You have 30 minutes. She nodded, accepting the boundary. "I'm not here to ask you for anything. I know you've heard about the money. About Daniel. He came to my house. He was angry that I ruined your life." She winced. "He's in jail now. Wire fraud, apparently. He'd done this to 3 other women before me. I was just the latest mark." She laughed bitterly. "You tried to warn me." "Sarah." "No, let me finish. I've been in therapy. Court-ordered, actually. Part of bankruptcy proceedings. My therapist helped me see what I couldn't before. I was having a midlife crisis, and instead of talking to you, I blew up our entire life. The affair wasn't about Daniel or even about you. It was about me running from my own unhappiness and blaming you for it." I stirred my coffee, not sure what to say. "The worst part is, I knew you were a good man. I knew you loved me. And I used that. I weaponized your love to hurt you because I was too cowardly to just admit I was struggling. When I smirked at you that day in the kitchen," her voice cracked, "I was trying to convince myself I was brave. That I was taking control of my life. But I was just being cruel. Why are you telling me this now? Because you deserved better than what I gave you. And because I need you to know that the consequences you gave me saved my life." I looked up sharply. "What?" "When Daniel took that money, I was suicidal. I'd destroyed my marriage, given away my future, and had nothing. I was standing on the edge, literally. I drove to the bridge downtown, ready to end it." Tears streamed down her face. "But I kept thinking about what you said. About actions having consequences. About taking responsibility." She pulled out a small notebook. "Instead of jumping, I called a crisis hotline. They got me into a program. I've been working 2 jobs, paying off my debts. I'm living in a studio apartment, driving a 15-year-old Honda. I have nothing, Mark. But for the first time in years, I'm not lying. Not to anyone, including myself. Sarah. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know that what you did, making me face consequences, it worked. Not the way either of us planned, but it worked. You gave me the wake-up call I desperately needed, even though I fought it every step of the way." We sat in silence for a moment, years of history hanging between us. "I'm glad you're getting help," I finally said. "Genuinely." "Are you happy?" she asked. "In that big house, without me?" I considered the question. Over the past 2 months, I'd done a lot of thinking. I'd started therapy too. I'd reconnected with friends I'd neglected. I'd even gone on a few dates, though nothing serious. "I'm not happy yet," I admitted. "But I'm healing. And I'm not angry anymore. That's more than I deserve." "Maybe. But it's what I needed for me." I checked my watch. "I have to go. I have a meeting." She stood when I did. "Mark? Thank you. For holding me accountable. For not letting me get away with it. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you gave me a chance to become someone better." I nodded and turned to leave, then stopped. "Sarah, the money you gave Daniel. Did you file a police report?" "Yes. My attorney says I might recover some of it, but it'll take years." I pulled out my business card, not the one for my consulting firm, but a new one. I started a foundation. It helps people rebuild after financial devastation from fraud. Call this number. They might be able to help. Her hand trembled as she took the card. "Why would you?" "Because holding you accountable doesn't mean I want to see you destroyed. It means I wanted you to understand the weight of your choices. You understand now. That's enough." I walked out of the cafe into the bright afternoon sun. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Judge Morrison signed the final decree. "Your divorce is official. Congratulations or condolences, whichever feels appropriate. I texted back, both. And neither. Just closure. 3 months later, I sold the house. Too many ghosts. Too many memories. I bought a smaller place downtown, closer to my office. I was having dinner with friends when I got an email from Sarah. The subject line read, "Thank you." I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. "Mark, I wanted you to know I got into nursing school. It's something I always wanted to do but never thought I could. Your foundation helped me create a budget and manage the remaining debt. I start in January. I'm also celebrating 1 year in therapy and 6 months completely debt-free except student loans. I'm dating someone new, a teacher I met in a financial literacy class. We're taking it slow. He knows my history, all of it, and is helping me learn what healthy love looks like. I'm not writing to ask you to be happy for me. I'm writing because I'm finally happy for myself. And none of it would have happened if you hadn't held up that mirror and made me look at who I'd become. You gave me $90,000 in consequences, and it turns out that was exactly the price of my redemption. I hope you're finding your own happiness. You deserve it more than anyone I know. Sarah. I closed my laptop and looked around the table at my friends, Tom and his wife, Patricia and her husband, my college roommate visiting from Seattle. Real people. Genuine relationships. No more pretense. No more lies. Everything okay? Tom asked. Yeah, I said, and meant it. Everything's exactly as it should be. The story of my marriage had ended with a $90,000 bill and a smirk that turned to tears. But my story, the one about rebuilding, healing, and learning that justice isn't the same as revenge, that story was just beginning. And this time, I was writing it alone, which turned out to be the only way it could be written. Some lessons cost $90,000. Some cost a marriage. And some cost everything you thought you knew about yourself. But in the end, the price of truth is always worth paying. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because that's how you know it's real.